This is a LUMIX S9. It doesn't have a hot shoe mount, it doesn't have dual memory card slot recording, it doesn't have an EVF or a mechanical shutter. But sometimes you don't always get what you want, you get what you need. Okay, so let's get into what this camera can actually do. And if you're eagle-eyed, you might have noticed I've actually swapped cameras. This is shot on the LUMIX S9 with the 20 to 60mm lens attached. I've also switched over to open gate mode in one of my favorite modes on the camera, MP4 Lite. This is a much less data heavy version of the open gate you would get in a typical video mode. Now, open gate is one of my favorite features. It allows you to record something once and then share that across multiple platforms. On the back of the camera, you're going to find a control dial. In the middle of that, you're going to find ISO, white balance, burst rate settings, and autofocus settings. Just up from that, you're going to see a little button called Q. Q stands for quick menu. This is where you're going to access various modes and features quickly. Above that, you'll see what is new to Lumix cameras, a button called LUTS. Now, someone recently asked me if they should record in like vlog for photography, and I said no, and I stand by that because typically vlog is used on log footage, which isn't as high a bit rate as say a 12-bit or 14-bit photo is. However, I'm starting to be convinced that if you can just bake your LUT in to your footage and have your photo and save yourself a little bit of time, or you want some fun with that, I think this is great. You can even change the sort of opacity of that LUT as well. So if some of the pre-installed ones are too strong, you can sort of take them down a bit, and then you could add your own and adjust the opacity on those as well. There's also a new app which I haven't used yet, but it's supposed to be pretty good, so I'll be looking to use that pretty soon too. On the top of the camera, you're going to find your PASM dial, so called because it looks like it spells PASM, but this is where you're going to be able to set up things like a manual mode, a semi-automatic mode, like you might want to set it to A to only control your aperture, or S to control your shutter and let the camera do the rest of the work. Next to that, you're going to find a red record button. Finally, you're going to have your shutter button, and ringed around that is another control dial. The front one does the aperture and the back one I think does the shutter. I usually always shoot in fully manual, but if you're getting this camera, there is a chance you might be relatively new to content creation or filmmaking. So you might want to set it to a semi-automatic mode because it doesn't matter, whatever works and gets the job done. Now, in terms of inputs, you've got one audio jack input. Currently I'm using a Rode mic and I've just put that into the audio input. Unfortunately, there's no headphone jack, so you can't monitor your audio as you're, doing your job essentially. Or if you play it back, you're going to have to just rely on the inbuilt speaker. This was one of the most frustrating things that they left out of the camera, and it wouldn't have been so bad if any company, in fact, would finally allow for Bluetooth recording through the camera, because then you could use any headphones you want and just use Bluetooth. Please, somebody do that. On the other side of the camera, this is probably one of the most silly design parts of the camera. You'll find your USB-C charging input. I believe you can connect it to a computer and use it as a webcam as well, but I've not done that myself. But near that, you're going to find your micro HDMI cable. Now, micro HDMI cables kind of suck, but they're relatively cheap, easy to replace. If you're going to stick a monitor on this camera, get a bunch of micro HDMI cables, don't just rely on one. The reason it's a really silly design though is because it's on the side of the camera that you grip. So how are you supposed to have a monitor on top of the camera if this is in the way of where you'd be holding the camera? Quite silly, don't know why they did that. For me personally, it's not going to be an issue because I'm not going to use the camera like that, but it is worth keeping in mind if that was something you was going to do with this camera. And finally, of course, there is the cold shoe mount. Now, there was a lot of fuss about this, and I can see why. There is a BMW XLR adapter that you can get. Basically, you can connect it to the top of your Lumix S5 II and most other Lumix cameras and have audio go directly into the camera, which is awesome. But you can't do this on this camera. Again, this is not really marketed as a professional level camera, so I can see why they left it out, but it is also annoying that you can't use a flash on the camera either, especially because that sort of front facing hard flash look has now come back into fashion a little bit. I don't tend to use flashes. I prefer natural light. However, you should definitely learn how to use flash, and I definitely do in certain situations. One of my favorite things about this camera as well is that Lumix removed the record limits. Now, they had put them in there to sort of help negate any overheating, but I would just rather risk it and just see what happens. And by all accounts, it's pretty good at not really overheating anyway. I've not used the camera extensively yet. I've only had it for a short amount of time, but I've not run into any overheating as of yet, fingers crossed. And in terms of features inside of the camera, it's absolutely jam-packed. I mean, I'm talking the high-res mode, one of my favorite modes in my S5 II. It's a mode other creators have kind of poo-pooed for some reason, but it is the best implementation of a high resolution photo mode in any camera. So in a nutshell, it will take 8 photos, stitch them together and give you a 96 megapixel photo. However, if there's lots of moving objects in your scene, then the photo will fall apart a little bit. But if you're taking a product shot, it's fantastic. Of course, being Panasonic, it is absolutely heaving with video modes as well. Okay, so it'll probably be impossible to list every single mode on here, but let's go with some of the big ones. Now, typically I shoot in MOV and I edit it in Adobe, and I'm trying to move over to DaVinci Resolve as well. Now, you can shoot all the way up to 6K video footage in OpenGate in 10-bit log. It's phenomenal. Now, the only drawback is that is in 420 instead of 422, but honest to God, I rarely see a difference between the two. Not saying there isn't a difference, but I'm saying practically speaking, you're probably not going to notice a difference. And if this is one of your first cameras, I wouldn't worry about it in the slightest. Now, we also get a whole array of 4K modes. You get your standard 4K, 3840 by 2160. Then you also get Cine 4K. You can also shoot in 60p as well, so shooting at a higher frame rate will allow you to do slow motion in the edit. However, it does incur that same 1.5 time crop, which I do find infuriating, but you can work around it and it is not the end of the world. And lastly, you can shoot in MP4, and I think a lot of those modes would be available in there as well. Needless to say, this is an absolute powerhouse of a camera when it comes to video in particular. Who is this camera for? Well, it's for entry-level photographers and videographers, especially videographers, who want to get into the full frame camera experience. Now, it has loads of features, but obviously it has some drawbacks as well, which hopefully will be addressed in the LUMIX S9 too. Would I recommend this camera for professionals? Well, yes, I'm a professional and I'm using it, but would I recommend it as your only camera? No, it'll probably be great as a B or a C camera. And outside of the professional world, I highly recommend it for everybody. It's tiny, it's stylish, and it's just got that retro chic about it. And scientifically speaking, there's only one way you should set this camera up. On here, I have the K&F M42 to L mount adapter. Now, M42 is a screw mount, and that's for vintage lenses. Lenses that come out in like the 80s and the 90s. Now, these lenses are beautiful. They're beautiful because they're not as clean and as clinical as modern lenses like the lens I'm shooting on. The lens attached to the camera you can see at the moment, that is a 29mm Pentagon f2.8. If you want to best marry up the digital and analog experience, it doesn't get better than this. You can control your aperture and your focus on the lens itself. And there's something special about doing that. I can't explain what it is, but it just really gets you in the zone, and I absolutely love it. And not to mention how cool this looks, especially when you finish it off with a nice grip and a nice strap. The strap I'm using is by Peak Design. It's technically my fiance's, but look how good it looks on this camera though, right? So if you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Let me know if you're using this camera, if you're a L mount shooter as well. Let me know in the comments below and I'll get back to you. In the meantime, I've got a whole bunch of other videos I need to be working on, so I'll catch you next time. See ya.